This week on Houston Newsmakers, what a week it's been, but we have made it. The dust of the midterm elections mostly settled down, but the appearance of inefficiency with the voting process in Harris County continues. And when the counting was done, the most expensive race in Harris County ended with the incumbent holding on. We'll talk about the county judge race and others across the region and the country and what it means as we move forward. And you've got 1 week left to receive amnesty for your outstanding traffic warrants, what you need to know and do to avoid jail time. And it's that time of the year again when people give up a perfectly good bed to sleep outside on the ground for a cause of helping to make lives better for homeless youth. The Covenant House Executive Sleep Out is around the corner. How you can help in this week's Houston Newsmakers.
From KPRC2, this is Houston Newsmakers with Cambrell Marshall.
Well, it was a night of suspense, not only across the country, but also here in the Houston region with the Harris County judge seat on the line. A well-funded challenger against incumbent Lena Hidalgo. The challenger, Alexandra Miller, gained ground in recent polls, was even leading in at least two, but the reality of the vote was something else, with Lena Hidalgo reelected as Harris County judge by a 2% point margin. And you could tell she was pumped after winning a second term.
To the naysayers who think I'll be intimidated by conspiracy theories or by bullying or by political prosecutions, bring it on! Bring it on!
Okay, let's start there with our guests this week, former Harris County Judge Ed Emmett and fellow at Baker Institute, and Dr. Michael Adams, political science professor, public administration and director of the Executive Master of Public Administration at Texas Southern University. Thank you. We were together election night on KPRC 2 Plus live stream. Hopefully you all joined in. It was a wonderful evening. Polls showed Alexandra Miller with a 2% point lead. That was right before the election. But when the votes were counted, it was altogether switched around with Hidalgo winning by a percentage point and a half. Your take. You've had a chance to analyze what happened on the backside. Judge, you first.
Okay. The morning after the election, looking at the results, the thing that jumped out was Alex Miller didn't do significantly better than all the other judicial candidates. And she spent almost $9 million, and they didn't spend anything near that. And I think what happened was they got too wrapped up in the message of crime. Judge Hidalgo's weakness going in was people either liked her or didn't like her based on COVID and emergency management, and none of that turned up. And so I think the voters, who typically don't really know what the county judge is anyway, they just lumped Miller in with all the other judges. And looking back on it, it's always easy after the fact. I think if an ad had been run saying, who do you want in charge of emergencies, compare Alex Miller's credentials with Judge Hidalgo's credentials, and I think the voters would have split differently, because, you know, people are still mad about Harris County staying code red long after the public had said, you know what, we're over this. And so that issue was never touched during the campaign. And that's what, you know, looking back, I have to look at my own history.
Good.
That's what people remember the county judge for, is emergency management, not necessarily crime. Crime was a great issue overall, but there was never any attention given to which one do you want in charge in case things go bad.
Dr. Adams, your thoughts?
Looking at it, as a political scientist, I look at the way the vote was broken down. If you look at it, we didn't have straight ticket voting, but it's obviously the voters, they went in and they either push R for Republican or D for Dem all the way down the ballot. Look at the percentages. Within probably 2 to 3%, as you indicated, you can go all the way down to the county judges, and they all were within that margin. And the judges that lost, it's significant to point out that they were all black and they lost to white women. And I think if you look at, there may have been some cherry picking if you look at the names, for example, Ronisha, Deshawn, these are people who are identified as black. So that's something to consider as well.
Wow, that doesn't come, that's kind of new. I haven't heard that one before. That's a different angle. That's interesting. How much more can you dig into that?
Well, what's interesting is some of those very judges were elected 4 years ago.
On that straight ticket.
But the ticket was called Black Girl Magic.
Yes.
Okay. They ran on that, and it was kind of hard to talk about because anytime you said it, if people didn't know what you're talking about, go, no, that's what they're running as. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
And so I guess it jumped back on them this year.
All right, well, there's more to it, too. A bigger issue for the direction of Harris County, it appears. It's what's going on the commissioner's court. We had incumbent Adrian Garcia, who was able to keep his seat as commissioner in Precinct 2. He beat former Commissioner Jack Mormon by 5 percentage points. And then the bigger race was in Precinct 4, where Commissioner Jack Cagle was upset by Democrat Leslie Briones. She's a former judge, has an impressive academic background, Harvard, law, Yale, all that sort of thing. But now we have this swing in the court where there are 4 Democrats, 1 Republican. What do you think that's going to portend for the future of the county in terms of how it's going to be adjudicated?
Well, I think the real question is, are the Democrats going to overplay their hand? They have control of everything now, and it will be interesting to see. But those results, and hopefully an analyst that knows what he's talking about will back me up. They gerrymandered, and that, I don't use that term as a pejorative, I mean,
sure.
But they gerrymandered effectively, and those districts really performed exactly the way they were supposed to perform. I wouldn't call it an upset for Cagle to have lost.
Because of the way the district was changed around?
That district was, what, 8 to 10 points
right.
Democrat, and the fact that he got it down to 2 points.
Do you think that was one of the reasons why he was running as many ads as he
I
was?
think you're right, but I wouldn't call it gerrymandering. I was saying they created opportunity districts to favor Democrats or people of color or Democrats in those precincts. In particular, if you look at Precinct 2 in terms of Adrian Garcia, they sort of like shored it up more or less where he would have a chance of winning re-election. And in the other one, in terms of Precinct 4, they created, clearly was a district that was designed to elect a Democrat.
Any other races out there that raise your eyebrows?
Well, I think you have to talk about Harris County versus the state of Texas. Mm-hmm. The Democrats that I talked to prior to the election were saying that if Beto could carry Harris County by 8 points or 10 points, he could drag the rest across the line, because every election, the statewide Republicans do not do as well in Harris County as the local candidates. I mean, think about it. People running for district judge did better than Governor Abbott. And so that margin is, somehow that's got to be addressed. The statewide officials have got to be more in tune with urban areas.
Yeah, my thoughts were, if you go back to 2018 when Beto was at the top of the ticket, the coattails was much longer. I think he carried by, 200,000 voters. And I think his coattails were not quite as long this time around, but it did help. He won Harris County by 100,000 votes. And I think that was significant as well.
Now, we'll tell everybody we have a Newsmakers Extra because we have more to talk about than we can fit into this segment. But any concerns, long-lasting concerns about the way the election process took place, the inefficiency in some places?
I'll let you go first on that one.
No, I think you have to question why you can't have the paper ballots on site. And I think it's incumbent upon the universities in the city of Houston, why not Rice University, University of Houston, and Texas Southern, look at voter administration and help the election administrator. And I think that there are projects that we can undertake in terms of where the centers are, and you can do nuanced research in terms of where voters vote, and to clear up some of this and where we could make it better.
Your concern?
Yeah, well, my concern is that it gives fuel to the fire of, there's some shenanigan going on. Because you go back and look at which precincts ran out of ballots. Well, this time they were overwhelmingly Republican areas. And so does that make a difference? Who knows? But if you can run a clean election, you don't have any conversation about that.
Right. We got more to talk about because we always do. But for this segment, Judge Emmett, Dr. Adams, thank you. And we'll continue our conversation in Newsmakers Extra. Hopefully you'll join me as well.